I'm impressed.
What up, virtual people? Welcome to episode 98 of VCR Redux, where we take your favorite franchises out of the analog era and bring them back to 2023. I'm your host, pop culture punk Chris Stiles, joined as always by my co-host with the most, film professor Ian Klink.
Hey!
And of course, we have two radical guests on the show tonight. You know them as the creative tour de force behind Retro Fiend Radio, makers of the finest Canon martial arts docs on the internet. Their newest video, Canon Cuts: The Art of Action with Sam Furstenberg, is available on YouTube now. Proof positive that two heads are better than one. Kristian, Smock, and Dustin Nino are back on the show. Woo! Make some noise.
Thank you.
What up?
Thanks for having us.
We are not worthy of Retro Fiend Radio and all of its awesome treasures. Thank you so much for coming
seriously,
on,
look
guys.
at their posters. Look at
I
this want
man's...
to steal your posters.
You
have a Death Wish 3 poster. Nobody has a Death Wish 3 poster, and I am jealous.
We're nowhere near pitch
you.
time, but I want to cast Dustin as a villain named the Nino in fucking Bloodsport 5 right now. He is dressed and ready to go. I know he will. I know my man's got the iron hand. Look at those moves. Zoom can't even capture it. It's like, oh my god, I love it. We're gonna break the internet here today. But before we do that, we are of course looking to break some bricks, honor our Shidoshi, and evade Forrest Whitaker for the worst kept secret tournament in movie history. That's right, folks. This world needs Bloodsport 5 Transfusion, and we're here to give it to you. But faster than you could say Avenging Ogre, we need to talk about how Bloodsport came into our lives and what we love about it. And of course, that includes everyone watching in the live chat as well. Was it Love at First Laserdisc, Vital VHS? Hit us up in the chat and let us know how Bloodsport came into your lives. So, Kristian, do you remember the first time you watched Van Damme's coming out party, aka 1986's Bloodsport?
I do remember. In North County, San Diego area, there used to be a drive-in called the Oceanside Drive-In in Oceanside, and
you watched this in a drive-in. Oh my god, I love it.
I used to go there with my family a lot because it was cheap. You know, you get 2 movies for cheap, and I don't remember what movie we were watching, but we were watching some movie I wasn't interested in, and the screen out the side was Bloodsport. And I remember sitting and watching the screen without the sound and being like, you know, sitting in the car with my mom and being really bored, and eventually talking my mom into letting me get out and go like over there. And I don't remember, I got something from the concession stand, I think, and stood over by one of the speakers and watched like part of the movie. I didn't see the whole thing. I saw like some of the fights and some scenes from it. And then later, of course, saw it on VHS or HBO or something with my friends. It became one of those movies you'd watch with all your pals after school, and you know, as a high school. You know,
how dare you skip out? You were probably watching Ruskies with Peter Billingsley and watching, like that. You.
If I was watching that, I wouldn't have gone over to the other screen. I like it.
This is why we have you all in our show. You guys know Ruskies. Gosh bless.
Oh, that's a great movie. That's a great movie.
Chris turned me onto that. Recently, I watched that in the last few years, but I think probably during COVID or something. I fucking love that movie.
That's a COVID movie.
I'm embarrassed to say that I've heard the title and I know nothing else about it.
That's because you're a communist, and that's okay.
Well, I don't know. You know, it
used to be on Tubi. I don't think it is anymore. That might be kind of a hard find now.
This is an episode on
Chris. Actually has like a thick Russian accent. He just put on this whole like.
Well, you know, it's funny. I can actually do a lot of different like dialects and accents, but if I do them long enough, eventually they alter in Russian. You see, eventually I'm cooking borscht, and we will cook borscht, and we will eat borscht, and every word is borscht, and I don't really know much else about. I don't know anything about Russia, so other than there were the villains in all my favorite movies.
Yeah, we learned about them in '80s movies.
Yeah, everything I know about Russia, I learned from Rocky IV.
That's a great book title right there.
Yeah,
everything. And you know what? That's okay for me, but it's probably problematic when our political leaders actually probably have the same knowledge of Russia as I do now. They just everything they learned about from Rocky IV, and they didn't even learn the lessons that I learned from that movie. It's sad, but that's where take this, whatever. Way off in a bad direction. So getting back on track.
I know what you mean, though. If I can win, you can win. I know what you mean. Right.
So Dustin, tell us how you discovered Van Damme's masterpiece of Bloodsport.
This one, I clearly remember watching this for the first time. I came home and I remember I was just flipping through TV and I caught it right at the part where they give the sword to Van Damme after his training's complete, and then I watched the whole movie. And I remember going to school the next day and just being like, dude, what the fuck? Have you guys seen this movie? And like one of my other friends were like, yeah, I saw it yesterday, blah, blah, blah. And he was telling me he saw the whole thing. And, then I had to catch it again on TV to watch the beginning of it. And I remember I was fucking blown away.
And that it's a true story, of course, too.
Yes.
Right? Of course, yeah. We will break down.
Right. Yeah. At the end, and Lambo, if you're watching, I'm just fucking kidding.
Did Lambo work on Bloodsport?
No, he just hates fucking Frank Dux.
They have a big beef. We'll get into that later too. We'll get into that.
I was just kidding when I said it's a true story. It's not the true story.
I can't wait for that.
But I just remember at the end where it says like, fastest win with a knockout, whatever.
Yeah, all the stats.
Yeah. The one that got me was fastest knockout with the roundhouse or whatever, 72 miles per hour or whatever the fuck it said. And I'm thinking like, did they have a fucking like a radar gun, like a pitching gun there? Like, how did they know that?
They've got the coach from Major League One standing there with the gun, like, didn't have much heat on that one.
Yeah, I remember just as a kid, like, dude, the marketing was genius. It worked.
You mean even as a kid, you realized it was bullshit? Even as a kid, you were like, wait a minute, how did they do
No,
that?
As a kid, I believed it. I was like,
okay, gotcha. So did I.
I was like, clearly, if like the stats are so oddly specific, it's such an oddly specific lie.
Yeah.
That like you just believe it because it's like, oh, of course it was 72 miles per hour and
who would say that?
Which is weird. Yeah. Like it doesn't. I mean,
Kumite would have statisticians there that would record all this. Like,
yes, the MLB secret underground tournament has the budget for like a very deep staff of medical people and all statisticians,
crazy,
crazy lasers measuring every instant of replay, and
no cameras though. But,
it's the ESPN sponsorship that really puts the money in the
a lot of analytics and
exactly
yeah, way back
they go to the facility in Secaucus, New Jersey for the last 2-minute replay. It's judged off site.
Hold on, we'll get a replay on that New Jersey.
Oh my god.
So dude, I just hook, line, and sinker. That shit was like, I was about it.
It's hard to not be if you
doing martial arts, and so it was just fucking, that was the movie.
If you see this movie any younger than the age of like 15, it's probably almost impossible to not love it. But I want to hear Ian's story because I wouldn't be surprised if Ian comes out here on the attack. So Ian, tell us about you discovering Bloodsport.
My only thing I will attack is you called this his masterpiece, and I don't believe you believe that.
Okay, that's fair. We'll get into all that. It's not my favorite of Van Damme's movies, but this is considered by the public to be his crown jewel, which is like, I think it should be Kickboxer and Time Cop, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I do love Bloodsport though. It's maybe not Universal Soldier level even for me, but I love it. It's not fucking Hard Target or fucking Sudden Death or like any of the Lionheart.
It's his Canon days before Universal grabbed him. So I mean,
I love half what he did at Universal, but I love everything he did at Canon. Basically, No Retreat, No Surrender, like all that shit. Was it Black Eagle or Black Scorpion or something? One of those.
Black Eagle.
Yeah, like I kind of lose track of some of them now. But again, Van Damme playing a Russian. That's me learning what I know about foreign policy.
Van Damme play Russian.
Okay, so you stood corrected. It might not be my masterpiece, but it is the public's masterpiece.
Yeah,
I know.
So continue. So anyway. So you're what gas station pizza were you eating? What Iowa truck stop?
Man. But I remember, like, this is during this early 90s, all right? And I don't know the name of the store. That's the only unfortunate thing. I know it was in Iowa City. All right, we went to a video store in Iowa City that had the cards. You took the little plastic, the little plastic sheet. You took that up front, and they gave you the VHS.
Oh, you mean like when you bought video games at Toys R Us?
Well, it's kind of like that, but I know some video stores used to do that. So, you know, people wouldn't
Mhm.
steal the VHS and stuff like that. It was all behind the counter. So you would bring this little tag, but then when you lifted the tag behind it, it was the same thing, but it just said rented and like it was censored. You know, it was just like rented, you know, so you knew that movie was gone. But I remember this was around the time that my dad was renting pretty much every karate movie possible. And I love it that there's a new term out there. If you guys have heard this, it's called dad films, which we all knew dad films long before this generation was using this term. But like all of this, like Gerard Butler movies, they're calling dad films.
I think everything Tom Cruise has done for like the last 20 years has been a
Yeah,
dad
I mean,
film.
You know, but
You know, like a tasteless dad film.
But like
pretty much.
every
Like
Steven Seagal, Van Damme.
If Tabasco's too spicy for you, then that's your guy.
Well, Canon
Yeah, like it was-
specialized in dad films, pretty much.
But they
Yeah.
made him spicy as hell. They made him fucking great, you know.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
dad films had fucking flavors going on. That was, you know,
Yeah.
But-
cooked the right way.
I want to say, I don't know if it was a double feature, but I do want to believe that Bloodfist II and Bloodsport were rented the same time.
Now, here's an interesting thing I have to interject about you, sir. I feel like you've actually seen more Bloodfist films than Bloodsport films.
This
Am
is
I
true.
wrong?
I am a team Don the Dragon Wilson. I just watched Bloodfist VII Manhunt the other day. And
I was watching Bloodfist IV Forced to Fight
Oh.
last night too. So
like it's just
Wow.
it's
This
just
is for your dissertation fellowship.
I wish I like listen. And my favorite part about the Bloodfist movies is none of them match. They just
Right.
threw Bloodfist on it. Like that like
well,
there's no
interestingly enough,
That's
Bloodsport
beautiful.
eventually kind of goes down that road.
I know.
Yes,
it,
it
it,
does.
it's
Good to four.
genius.
It's like it really it's interesting. This series really
Right.
takes and borrows little bits of all these different things, and there's so many parallels to Kickboxer as a franchise because they both started out at Canon with Van Damme, and then they both brought in like a capable lead, but didn't really give him much to do in the second film. So they tried to sort of redeem it in the third, and like, you know, we'll get into the arc of this series, but of course, most of the people here are going to want to talk about the original film. So I do want to give that its time in the sun, of course. And I'll get to my first time watching the original in a sec. I do want to say hi to everyone in the live chat. I see Alex Bonafonte, Antonio Zapata, Monica Thyman, Sean Gold of Gold's Code, Oscar Toronzo. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I see Mikey Riffraff. That's Mikey Saunders. And I assume Angie Saunders isn't too far behind. A couple of mashup geniuses there. Thank you so much, guys. Let's see. Gold's Code says, my body's ready. My heart's on fire. Kumite, kumite, kumite. Oh, I love it. That's like, I want to get that tattooed on my back.
Kumite.
Oscar Toronzo said, I'm an 80s kid. And oh, the kumite. Yeah, we got to throw a shout out to Stan Bush. You know,
Yeah.
while we're on the topic, Stan
Look,
Bush fucking
yeah.
slayed the Kickboxer and Bloodsport soundtracks. And I think he later what do you do? The Transformers movie as well. Worked with the great Vince DiCola on that. If you guys don't know about Stan Bush, just look up a song called Never Surrender by Stan Bush and thank me later. Seriously, oh my God, it doesn't get much better.
These chains.
And Stan Bush, the man behind the Boogie Nights song. You got the touch. Dun,
Yeah,
dun,
the touch.
dun.
That's a
a real
Transformers
song.
song.
That's
So-
from the Transformers movie, but he
Yeah,
also
yeah.
did a cover of the Transformers theme song for the
For
movie
Boogie
with
Nights.
Vince DiCola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
remember
they
he
will
also-
they use the song Boogie Nights,
Yes.
and yeah, it's
Yeah.
oh my God, just so like the more obscure you get, the happier I get, especially in the 80s. But at any rate, Oscar Tron says, I'm an 80s kid. Naturally, these movies were part of the era. Everybody was kung fu fighting, Karate Kid and such. I went to an uncle at the movies, and of course, man, we love these. Man, you have a cool ass uncle. That is very cool. Gold's Code says Bloodsport is up there with Airborne as one of the greatest movies, and Ian is up there as one of the worst hosts. Bring back Mickey. Oh, I never thought I'd see the day
come
where
on.
Gold's Code calls for Mickey in the chat.
Goldie. Going hard on
Ian's-
paint tonight,
Ian's a-
Goldie.
Yeah.
Gold's Code says
They're just
Dustin, you
jealous,
want-
Ian. They're jealous of you. That's
You
what my
know-
mom would say. They're just
you
jealous.
know, there's a world out there where nobody went to go see Airborne, right? There's this universe out there where nobody went to see it, nobody liked it, nobody acknowledged it.
That's what we call the dark Earth, like the dark Kumite.
Because nobody likes that movie.
Kumite.
Nobody likes it. Nobody.
Yeah.
Stop making it a thing.
Follow
Those were the
Airborne
dark
Movie
ages.
Experience on Instagram because the 30th anniversary is going to blow your
And
minds, folks.
I look forward to all three of you enjoying that conversation in the middle of an empty Hilton. I enjoy that.
I'm just telling you, Skating Down Devil's Backbone is a Kumite in its own right. But speaking of Kumite, Mikey Riffraff says he watched it on cable. Goldscoat says local cable. Let's see, watch it in the movies. Monica Simon.
What's local? What's
jealous.
Local cable like
ABC?
it?
You know, fucking either like TBS could be considered local cable because it's affiliated.
Okay. Yeah.
So, or it could be a smaller station. Either
Hey,
way,
WGN Chicago.
You will get to WGN Chicago in just a little bit.
Like small town cable.
Also, a lot of love for Dustin's clothing in the live chat.
That is
Dustin has declared the Shidoshi of VCR Redux, and I endorse that entirely. And just generally some Van Damme love in there and well. So this is I'll get to my first story. Bloodsport. Good Lord, I can talk. My first time watching Bloodsport.
That's a totally different movie.
So we may be in some time rift multiverse because for the first time, I have two specific memories of watching Bloodsport for the first time. And I don't know which one is true and which one is fake or which one was first and which one was second. But my two stories with Bloodsport are as this. One, I remember Michael Emity's birthday party in like 3rd or 4th grade or whatever it was. And it's one of those sleepover birthday parties where like, they let your parents like rent 3 movies and the kids just stay up all night watching movies. It was Beetlejuice, Space Invaders, and Bloodsport. And Bloodsport.
Space Invaders.
Wow, that's a good lineup.
That is a pretty that was a solid sleepover, right?
Yeah.
And I remember
I don't know, but the ship is dead.
I'm not sure it gets any better than that evening, actually.
Well, no, especially
I can beat that.
Evening...
I can beat that. One evening at a birthday party, we did Revenge of the Nerds and Charles Band's Remote with the yodeling toy.
Wow,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I will say it was also on
I'm sorry,
night...
did I fart and kill the room? Like, how dare you guys not acknowledge a remote?
Remote. I did acknowledge it. I like it.
I'm trying to think. Wait.
Ted Nicolau, right? Directed.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. Yeah, it's great.
See,
I'm getting taken to school on VCR Redux tonight. I must say I'm not familiar with
Remote. You've never seen Remote?
No.
All right, let's not get sidetracked, but Remote is very good. You should
I forgot they didn't bring that into the former Soviet Union.
So my other memory of watching Bloodsport is one of those Sunday family parties, like, I don't know, maybe in spring or maybe someone's birthday or it was Mother's Day or something. Everyone's over at my parents' house and I sneak down to the basement to watch TV by myself like I always do. And Bloodsport's on there, WGN, Sunday, I watch it through commercials and I really can't remember which one was first, but I remember both of them enough to feel like both were the first time watching the movie. I know it doesn't make much sense, but
I know what you mean. I know what you
in
mean.
that sense, you like, oh my God, there's fucking Donald Gibb, there's Ogre, he's incredible. You already recognized Bolo Yang because I had already seen Double Impact and Enter the Dragon. And I'm like, oh, this guy is just fucking great. And of course, I've said this many times before, Van Damme only has chemistry with 4 actors, and one of them is himself. So that only really leaves like Bolo Yang, Michael Kissy, and I don't know, is there a 4th? There's a 4th somewhere. Probably. Oh, the guy who plays ZN, Dennis Chan, I think. So those are about the 4 actors Van Damme has chemistry with. So it's good that we have one of them in Bloodsport. It's a big part of what makes it a classic. I think an action hero is only as good as its villain, and I think the villain, Chong Li, the great Bolo Yang, is the best part of Bloodsport. I mean, who doesn't want to hang with Bolo Yang?
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah.
And
like, just for the memes alone, like, the memes of him walking up and pointing, it's like me when they forgot to give me sweet and sour sauce with my nuggets at McDonald's. It's like him, like, it's like, oh God, I just live for those. And then, oh God, Chong Li is just perfect. I mean, that's the one thing this movie really does have, probably at least on par with Kickboxer for me, is like Chong Li, Tong Po. Like, man, they're just both 2 of the greatest villains of all time. I don't care what anyone says. it's probably pointless to try and rank them or decide who's better, because they're both so good and so different.
I disagree. I like the Tung Po from Kickboxer 4.
The fake
fake
fucking
one?
Tung Po.
That's right. That guy.
How dare you? Okay, I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
Everything.
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, who's walking off the
That
show
guy's
now?
everything.
You like the fake Tung Po?
No,
That's not
no.
even a
Yeah, I
fight
do.
scene. It's a chase scene around a dinner table because that guy couldn't fight. That
And it's
ruined
literally, you hear stew
ruined the
noises. It's
finale. What
best.
could have been the finale. I know there's a Kickboxer 5, but I barely acknowledge it. But
Yeah.
So did Van
So-
Damme when he cashed the paycheck. If you saw it,
I
Well,
rented that and was so disappointed as a kid.
should we get into some of the behind the scenes stuff of one? Because it was a mess, right?
well,
I'm sure
before
you
we
guys-
go, before we go on though, like, what is your guys' Van Damme, like your Van Damme masterpiece? Because I'm gonna stand by
Okay.
Hard Target every day.
Time Cop, no question.
Yeah.
I'd have to say Time Cop as well, just because I love the director. Stephen Lambert's also
yeah.
involved, so like, there's a lot of reasons why I love Time Cop. Yeah,
Mia Sarah, Ron Silver is an amazing villain.
yeah, exactly.
Peter Hyams.
I don't know if
Hideyoshi.
it's
Yeah,
it's not
Peter
it's
Hyams.
not his best martial arts movie, but I think it's
No.
his best overall movie. You know, just
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
definitely.
gonna go on. I'm gonna say no one's gonna. I'm gonna say just because you guys name those, I think I'm gonna give an honorable mention just to the Quest.
Oh, the
The
Quest.
Quest is
underappreciated.
that's a deep Van Damme. That's a deep dive.
That's
Well,
another
you know
Frank
what to
Dux
me-
and Lambo. There you go.
It
There's the
is.
feud.
The
Yeah.
Quest. Oh, really? That's where it comes
Yeah.
from. So the Quest, the thing I find interesting about the Quest is I consider the Quest to sort of be the end, where like everything after the Quest is like Double Team or Desert Heat or like
Right,
something
right.
that just like
Yeah.
really was
The
knock
Shepherd.
off with
Right.
Rob Schneider. Yeah, like
Right.
Have
just
any
like
of you-
finally, he's a Frenchman. His name's Chris Dubois. He's in Europe or whatever the fuck.
oh
Finally, you don't have
Legionnaire
to-
or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
Nowhere
Right.
to Run's
It's
pretty
just-
good, actually. I haven't.
Yeah,
Is that
I
what it's
remember
called?
That was before. That was before the Quest, I think. Right? That was
It
the
I mean,
was
have you
before.
guys
You're right.
seen
It
the-
was before. Yeah, you're
See,
right.
see, I have all the direct to video years. Have you all seen The Shepherd?
No.
Yes.
Shepherd. No, I
Yeah,
haven't seen
yeah.
that one.
The
good. I
Shepherd
like that.
is,
It's
I
good.
think, literally
There's a. You're right. Yeah.
it's literally like an AI computer wrote what it was told. Like, write a Jean Claude Van Damme script and put everything in there, and everything you want in a Jean Claude Van Damme movie, they literally give you. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this scene, he should have a machine gun. He pulls out a machine gun. I want him to talk to that secretary. He looks over the secretary like, you're going to die. Like, it is the best. That movie gives you
Oh,
everything you want.
Oh, I'll have to see that one.
I will say for a lot of his later movies, for actors who tend to do a bunch of straight to video stuff, and a lot of them will suck. Van Damme is a lot of his movies are underappreciated. A lot of people just don't see him anymore for whatever reason, and they're good. They're actually good. He
Right.
tries and he plays some sort of. It's interesting to watch.
Oh,
The fight scenes are
JVCD,
so
come
interesting.
on.
Right?
That was fun. His
That was
show
just
on Amazon was
beautiful.
fun too, I thought.
Yeah.
He had a
Van
show on
Johnson.
Showtime too that was really good too, like a few years before the Amazon show, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't
Um,
know that.
Yeah, it was like a reality show about him trying to like
Behind
mount
Closed
a
Doors.
comeback.
Oh, I
that's
never
a
Is
good
that
saw
what it
that.
was?
Oh,
Yeah, that
sounds
was
good.
Yeah,
really good. I was
that's a
upset
good
that got
one.
canceled. I was really big on that and Life's Too Short with Warwick Davis. I thought that was a great show that HBO canceled.
I
too
remember
soon.
that. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really great. But I mean, with Van Damme's movies and Van Damme's, everyone's gonna have a slightly different opinion. I feel like I'm the only guy in the room every time who prefers Kickboxer to Bloodsport. And like part of the reason is because Bloodsport, I mean, I'm sure they were both a fucking mess behind the scenes. And I think Van Damme took over probably the editing of both movies. But like, I know he really saved this. Like, this is like an infamous, like, he lived in the editing room to recut the whole movie and make it work. And it was a mess. And if you like study filmmaking and like you look at editing, you can see a little bit of the seams in the first movie where it's like, well, they didn't quite have what they needed, but they cut around it and sort of tried to make it work. And like, hats off. It made his whole fucking career that he did this.
Right.
He quit Predator to do this, I think, if memory serves.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
way, just another Canon connection too. I can't remember if Sam Furstenberg told us this in private, Dustin, or if we were like recording and interviewing him. he was talking about Sheldon Littich and talking
Mhm.
about how they were friends and stuff. And he was talking about Bloodsport. And he just mentioned that he was originally approached to direct Bloodsport. And the only reason
Really?
Sam turned it down was at the time, he said that when he read the script, most of the script took place in one location at the Kumite. And he said he didn't want to be indoors filming in one location the whole time. He wanted to be outside, exteriors, blah, blah. So he turned it down. But I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I thought you were about to say he turned it down because Sheldon was trying to get them to let him direct or something, and he was like politely bowing out of the way.
Yeah, he just thought it was going to be like one. I mean, I don't know. I doubt he regrets anything, but he probably, once it was a success, he was probably like, "Whoa, maybe I should have done that." But yeah, he was originally kind of slated to do it. I also thought, is it Newt Arnold, the guy that directed it? I didn't know much about him, so I looked him up. I thought it was kind of interesting because he only directed 2 other movies in the 60s and 70s, which were kind of B horror movies. And then Bloodsport was his last attempt at directing a film. And he never directed a film after that, but he's had a very prolific career as a assistant director, as an AD. And he worked on tons of movies. I mean, the first movie he worked on was In the Heat of the Night, which, is a classic. But he also worked on The Godfather 2, Blade Runner, The Goonies. And he also worked on a bunch of other Canon movies, Missing in Action, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Alan Quartermain and Lost City of Gold. But he was like, if you look him up, he had a prolific career as a second unit director and as an AD. And right after Bloodsport, that same year, he went on to be the assistant director for James Cameron on The Abyss.
That's like Peter McDonald level, who directed Rambo 3. He was probably the great second unit director in Hollywood. He's worked on like everything, every Batman and superhero and fucking big, and I always thought that guy should have moved on to a bigger career after Rambo 3. But there's a million, there's so many talented directors that never got the chance, that are amazing. I feel like even with directors and with writers, there's so much talent out there that just doesn't, get discovered, doesn't really get the push, doesn't land on a fucking bed full of cash like it should.
But on an action movie, if you don't have a good second unit director, your movie will be bad, though.
Absolutely.
Really, truthfully, like I think, people, and that's the thing. I'll be honest. I've gone to film school. They don't encourage anybody to go into second unit. They don't encourage anybody to go into like, hey, you should really try this assistant director thing. Like, you should really go. Like, they don't encourage that. They always encourage everybody to go to the top. Go be the director. But like, man, a second unit can do
AD.
Another interesting thing, actually, too. Another Sam connection is Sam Furstenberg did AD work for William Friedkin on The Sorcerer in 1977.
Oh, wow.
Shit.
Which our most recent podcast with Sam, to shameless plug, we talk about that.
Plug, yeah.
But he talks about that kind of extensively. But
wow, that's so
cool. But the director Newt Arnold, that directed Bloodsport, was also an assistant director on Sorcerer as well in 1977. So him and Sam might know each other. Maybe not, though, because Sorcerer was shot on I think 3 continents and 5 countries. So they had multiple, like Sam was a second unit director in Jerusalem and worked with the stunt crew, and that's what he did. So I don't know what Newt Arnold did, but it's just interesting that they worked on the same movie together.
Oh wow, yeah, that is really small world kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the first, Bloodsport comes out, it's this surprise hit. Again, like, and not to harp too much on Kickboxer, but just they mirror each other so much, and like the things that maybe they kind of make opposite mistakes and sometimes same mistakes, and you get to the sequels. But the thing about Kickboxer that gives it the edge for me, and we'll get back to Bloodsport, but I feel like they both had the same low ass budget. But maybe Van Damme was a little bit more mature at this point. He sort of helped, the directing was a little bit more. I think they had some more pieces to work with. They really stretched the budget and used locations, which is like part of what made Canon films. That was sort of a special effect for them, was like, well, they'll spend the money to go to the location, and then you just got to shoot it right, And Kickboxer really did that well. Whereas kind of to Sam's point, there's a lot of it in the Kumite. It's not like a really visual powerhouse movie, except for the fight stuff in slow-mo, maybe. But even in Kickboxer, it's a little bit more theatrical. But even still, Bloodsport comes out, it's a huge hit, and it's probably one of Canon's biggest hits, probably more so than Kickboxer. And it puts Van Damme on the map. And the interesting thing about it is that it seems like Golan and Globus never really believed in Van Damme. Like, they really believed in Michael Dudikoff and fucking Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson, and like, you know, they had their guys. I think probably even Franco Nero, Sho Kosugi maybe. But like, for whatever reason, like, they didn't see it for Van Damme. They just like begrudgingly worked with him a couple times. And
the story of Van Damme is interesting, of him begging Menachem Golan in the office, just pleading with him to give him something.
Well, every day he'd go into the office and he'd perform for him as he walked into the building. He'd walk into the building and he'd perform and kick and do all that kind of stuff.
And he just like fucking grabbed Bloodsport and said, "Here, have this," and gave that to him. And
well, wasn't it on like Cyborg or something? I mean, he was just
Cyborg was the first one, right? The first starring role, wasn't it?
I think first starring role, but it was like, wasn't that like the last two that he did for?
I think it was the last one to be released. I think it was after Kickboxer. I could be wrong though. I'm pretty sure Cyborg.
It's Death Warrant, Double Impact, and
Cyborg precedes all that Universal shit. Definitely.
Those are all canon. Those are canon.
Yeah, all the canon movies precede all the Universal movies.
Yeah.
Van Damme.
I thought for some reason Cyborg was his first starring role, but I could be wrong.
Is that what you mean? Like, credited is like the
like
star?
He was the
where
lead,
it says like starring Jean Claude Van Damme.
You know, he's not
Bloodsport. Like,
well, he's not like, you know, it's not like Black Eagle where he's with Sho Kosugi. He's like the co-star. He's not the co-star.
Right. Oh yeah. No Retreat, No Surrender, where he's the villain.
Yeah. So I think it was after Double Impact. That's when he went to That's when it went to Universal.
Well, yeah. Double Impact honestly came from Canon. It was a script that they had and that they got rid of for like nothing. It was this weird deal with Sheldon Lettich that like they wanted him to do something else, and he said, "I'll do this other thing for you, but instead of like giving me more money, I'll take less money and you give me my script back for Double Impact," which is like, "Oh, fine, we don't give a shit about your piece of shit movie." And Double Impact cost nothing. It was made very cheap to the Canon model, using location as its biggest special effect. And Van Damme is its biggest star, and it was made for very little, made a shitload of money at the box office. And that to me is sort of the movie that really legitimized Van Damme. Like, he was this great, capable action star, but like to Hollywood's, you know, view, he was in these little Canon movies. Now he does a Columbia movie, Double Impact. You know, it's a low budget Columbia movie, but you know, it's a huge commercial hit, a huge video hit, all with him, two of him on the cover. You know, next movie, Universal Soldier. You know.
Yeah.
But enough of the Van Damme's career arc. We have barely even talked about the Bloodsport sequels. Where do we even begin, guys?
We don't.
I
gotta fully admit, I've never really seen them, but after watching the trailers, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I should have watched these years ago. And so I'm so sorry to our fans out there.
It's okay. We have the 3 out of 4 of us have seen them all. Andy, most of us have seen them all in the last 24 hours too. So they're fresh in our minds. I will say, again, it mirrors the Kickboxer franchise more than any other. A little bit of Bloodfist in there too, but like the second one is very much like Kickboxer 2. You recast with like a, you know, more unknown guy. He's capable, he's good looking, he's charismatic, but you don't give him much to do in that second movie.
I have to admit, I think I'm going to upset people when I say this, but I thought the fight sequences were better in the second movie.
I actually like Daniel Bernhardt.
Oh, yeah, I would agree there.
Ton of action.
I loved I thought the choreography. The choreography was just better in the second one, I thought.
Ironically,
I will go ahead, Stiles.
No, go.
I was gonna say, I will say this was interesting, stumbling across the arc of the action of like the second and third one, and even the fourth one. A lot of the fight scenes was there's Chad Stahelski was in it, who directed all the John Wick movies. Now he was one of the stunt guys, and
really
the bad guys in the movie.
And you can tell,
yeah. And it's just interesting because Bernhard, he's in all the John Wick movies. Either I think he was the bad guy in the second one. He just does stunts on the other one.
He's also in Atomic Blonde too, as one of the villains. The Bernhardt guy. He like fights her.
He was also in the new Matrix movie. Like he was one of the agents.
He's a great martial artist. I mean, it's not as good of a movie. Right. But the fight sequences I thought were really good. I was surprised.
Well, ironically, the second film is probably the best Bloodsport sequel. It's way better than the third film to me. Sure. And the fourth film could barely hold my attention. It was it was kind of painful to watch. But
by the way, the
film is mostly balanced.
And James Hong and Pat Morita are always a plus. They're always a plus.
I kind of hope as he's up there at the Oscars, James Hong, as he's, as a movie he was in won Best Picture. I hope he was thinking, remember that time I was on Bloodsport 2?
He's great. He's great in Bloodsport 2. He actually shines in Bloodsport 2. He's really good.
I love that.
He's always good.
That man.
I love when he does that thing in the prison where he's like,
yeah, I love that too. Yeah, that is the best. He's great at it.
Does the iron palm?
Yeah.
Not only is he that, but he's Snot from Revenge of the Nerds 2.
So yeah, Snotty. Well, oh god, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, oh my god, Snotty, fucking an Oscar actor now. I love Snotty. So yeah, the second film, it's it follows a pretty decent direct-to-video type of plot. Like you have this guy who's in jail, and he meets this, James Hong, and again, the Kumite is like barely a fucking secret at all. Like, you must get in. Well, you can't get in without an invitation. How do you get an invitation? You earn it. Well, he steals it instead. You get a little cameo by Donald Gibb, which is great. Some connective tissue there. I would have loved to see him come back in 3 or 4, but he was probably busy doing Revenge of the Nerds 4, Nerds in Love. With the great Corinne Bear. I love that movie.
It does have Robert Picardo, so I that does put it on my shelf just because. So.
More importantly, it's got Corinne Bear, and the VCR loves Corinne Bear. So anytime we get to plug her, throw a plug. Oh, you know what I mean. So then you get to Bloodsport 3, and man, this is where things get really, really messy.
Man, the framing story with the 10-year-old son, like what's up with that?
The whole movie is a flashback, which
like
is
it's
terrible.
cool if you want to see him pitch a tent with this kid through half the movie, but like they're literally pitching a tent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
And it takes so long to get to the Kumite in the third film.
Yeah.
And like,
wait, which is the one where they're in India? Is that one? Or is that
that one? It's the third one.
That one. Okay. And the sets are so sad. The interiors are.
It's so cheap.
Yeah, it really is. Cheap. It is the cheapest looking.
It looks like a bar that you would have to drink at if you were in hell.
Yeah.
And it's so convoluted. Like, you have this villain, the Beast, who seems like he could be a good Bloodsport villain, but then he's gone for like an hour, and you forget. It's very impersonal because he has to beat the Beast because the guy who hires the Beast killed James Hong because I can't even remember. Like, it's all very kind of vague, and it's like, okay, just put yourself in the 10-year-old, mindset, and like, oh yeah, bad guy, good guy, that's all fight, whatever.
Right,
but it just takes so long to get there that the Kumite is, it almost tough to watch at that point. You're like, oh man, like you should have gotten to this Kumite fucking 45 minutes before you did. And it doesn't live up to the first 2 Kumites. And the idea of a Kumite is a tough thing to make work because it's like the oldest martial arts trope in the book, right? There's a secret underground tournament where the greatest fighters all unite in a very exotic location that no one knows about in the world, but only the best. It's just like, how do you, the quest, Enter the Dragon, best of the best.
Yeah. Well, is it John Rhys Davies was the bad guy in that one? Right?
Oh, yes. Right. Yeah. John Rhys Davies.
And I love him. He's great. I mean, I don't want to speak badly of him because he's in a lot of great films and he's a great actor, but somehow he always just shows up in tons of B movies, bad movies. And if he shows up in a franchise in the 3rd or 4th movie, it's usually not a good sign. Like, traditionally. So the minute he showed up, I was like,
Ted McGinley of
my favorite
movies.
He's great.
My favorite John Rhys Davies role is just the insane fucking fight guy from Great White Hype. He's the corner man. He's like,
That's
racist.
right.
I'm not
Oh,
a
yeah,
bloody
I forgot
racist.
about
I'm an
that.
That's
Englishman.
right.
Fairest
I
people on
forgot
the
about
planet.
Funny.
If I was a racist, I wouldn't be working with you, you dirty Mick.
Well,
Like,
that's the thing about him. Like he's in, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then he's in some movie somebody shot on their phone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I love
like,
those
there's
guys,
no,
though.
like,
Same
no,
with
he's
Eric
great.
Roberts,
I love him.
you know?
I love him. But if
Yeah,
you're in
like-
a franchise and it's part 3 or 4 and he pops
Yeah.
up as the villain, it's usually a sign that
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is low budget. They got
Yeah.
him. I don't know.
My
So you
favorite
think Blood-
Reese-
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. I was gonna
No,
say
no,
my
no.
favorite Reese Davies side thing where he pops up is an episode of Chips where they're trying to do a backdoor pilot
Not no
And-
chip.
Oh,
and they
the
fucking
ninja
have-
pilot.
Yes, dude, they have him as like the evil drug lord ninja.
What?
That's
Ooh,
the
he
best
fights-
ever.
He fights
What?
fucking Fred Dreyer, who Fred Dreyer leads a fucking
Team of
an
ninjas.
underground team of ninja cops.
Wow.
And they all fight
Yeah.
at the end and shit
Oh,
all
that's the
at
best.
his
Oh
at his
my God.
compound. And it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
shit. And it's one of the backdoor pilots they tried to do a spin-off of the show.
It was supposed to
Why
be a
they
series, yeah. Oh, dude,
why
that
they-
last
why that wasn't a
15 minutes
series
is so
beyond
badass
me.
of that. It's
That's
like the best
another
television
Yes.
ever. Yeah.
dude,
He's
that's
still-
another thing where like I caught it on TV at home, like Bloodsport one day and
Really?
was just blown away at that fucking episode as a kid.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay.
Be still my heart, my
Forget
San
you,
Diego
BJ
Ninja heart. Yeah.
and the bear.
Oh, by the
So
way,
we-
the beast uses wrestling moves and shit in the third one too.
Yeah,
his shoes on the
very-
mat. I
yeah.
hate his
Like, I
shoes
was-
on the mat.
Oh yeah, that bugged the shit out of me. His boots on the
Yeah.
mat.
Okay, all right.
yeah,
but,
it
but
turns into
I'm
the
gonna-
quest a little,
look,
you know.
I'm
too
gonna swoop
questian
in here though, because again, I didn't see the movie, but I saw a couple of clips.
for Dark Kumite, Bloodsport 4.
Listen, when he shoves that pen in that guy's ear and he roundhouse kicks the back like into his ear further, there was a part of you that smiled, guys. Don't act like you
Yes.
didn't.
I
I
honestly
smiled.
wasn't
Smile.
for that movie costing $2.50. The Dark
But-
Kumite.
But it was worth every
Dark
penny.
as in we couldn't afford to turn the lights on. That's
Right.
Why
why
is
it's
it-
the Dark
They didn't turn
Kumite.
the lights on. It was moody and atmospheric on a $2 set.
It's
Yeah,
like the
just tons
Masters
of
of the
chicks.
Universe ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why was
exactly.
Daniel
Tons of
Bernhardt a
chicks.
different character? In
Well,
Yeah,
that's
that
that's
was
where you go into full
frustrating,
blood
too.
fist.
like
that's
I'm
what
so
they poured when-
confused by the
It was
movie.
probably made under a different title, and they're just like,
Yeah, that's
just put
exactly what it
Bloodfist-
was.
Put
Yeah.
Bloodsport on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
weird.
yeah, you're probably. Well, no, because it's about a fucking prison kumite.
It is about the Kumite.
It's
Well,
Death
yeah.
Warrant. It's literally fucking Death Warrant.
It pretty much
He's
is
That's
that
under-
true,
point.
He's
too,
an
yeah.
undercover cop. He goes into prison, fights in the fucking thing.
You're so right. It
But
Yeah,
he's not a
that's true.
Canadian undercover cop from Quebec.
Right, but he tries to sound like Van Damme the entire franchise. which
The
is-
villain's
does,
name
it's
is
the best.
Shrek.
Yeah.
He like Shrek is the bad guy, and then
Yeah, Shrek.
the guy that runs the Kumite, his name's Caesar, and he looks like Ben Franklin or some shit. But he has like all these
Yeah,
chicks.
oh my God,
Like, it's
it
just
was so
like, he has all-
weird, yeah.
He looks like Ben Franklin, but he
Oh,
has
God,
like this
yeah.
leopard
Yeah,
print
yeah.
like
Oh,
outfit
remember
on,
that guy?
and
Over
like
the
these
top.
women.
Yeah,
and,
but-
like,
But Chris,
Oh,
you should
it's
love that.
such
'cause
a
that,
mess.
that guy was in Herman's World.
Yeah.
Or
No,
Herman's
Herman's
Head.
Head?
Herman's Head. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Well,
was.
you know,
He's one of the
Listen,
actors
I
from
think-
Herman's Head. You should
I
like
haven't seen that
Alone.
for-
you know
forever.
what? One of the guys from Herman's Head was in Armageddon, and I'm not about to praise that fucking movie. So we got to draw a line somewhere.
We have to talk
Um,
about the Frank
oh,
Dukes thing a little bit here, though. right?
Okay, we
haven't
do.
even gone
Yes,
into
yeah,
it.
we should be
So.
pitching, but Frank Dux, in case you don't know, folks, apparently the guy's completely full of shit. All his true life stories, all lies. Wasn't even in the military. They didn't really find out until about 15 years later. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the way they found out was because he was actually teaching, and someone like called him out at his dojo or something. I don't know how true that last part is, but that's what I learned today doing a little deep dive research. At least that's what I came across today, I should say.
Yeah, no, there's videos on YouTube you can look up of people storming his dojo trying to fight the Black Dragons. You know,
Stephen Lambert has given him an open invitation to fight him anytime.
Oh God, take my money,
So-
please.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Oh.
they
I
have
will
a beef.
say-
They have a beef. Like
Yeah.
you can watch certain podcasts. I watch them sometimes, and Dukes will be on there talking shit about Lambo and
Well, here's the thing.
And Don the Dragon Wilson, because Don the Dragon Wilson always talks shit about Frank Dux. So he'll say bad stuff about them, and then they'll come out and say bad stuff about him. And then it's just this back and forth beef, on these weird little podcasts, and I'll watch them, and they're fun. They're kind of fun.
I love that. So it's like the Scottie Pippen. He comes out every year or two and says something super controversial about back in the day just to get people talking about Scottie Pippen again, who I love, one of my favorite players of all time. I grew up outside of Chicago. So, but at any rate, we should get into the pitches. We have limited time now, but luckily there are some in the chat getting it done for us. A lot of airborne talk in the chat, much to Ian's chagrin. Also, some people that love the second one. A lot of love for Dustin. Dustin stealing the night, apparently. Let's see. Where were those pitches at? They're scrolling down here. Here's one. Susan Paredes is recovering from his injury, but is still wounded mentally. He can't fight, but can blade. He joins Mitchell against the Preps to win back his respect in Bloodborne. Oh, man, that title is gold. I gotta say.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah, Bloodborne, that is the crossover I did not know I needed. I'll bet
the
you
gold
Van Damme,
I get out of the treasure chest at the dentist office. That's about
if you look at Van Damme in Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo, which had to be his first canon. I'm pretty sure that was his first canon thing ever.
When he's dancing, right?
When he's dancing in the crowd, he is dressed ready for rollerblading. You put Van Damme in that shit, get him on the side against the Preps going down Devil's Backbone, and I am there.
Sorry, I'm on Team Crush Groove.
So another pitch in here. Oh, there's also Angie Saunders pitching Bloodsport with Cobra Kai, and I'm so down. They did watch Bloodsport at the drive-in, much like Kristian in season 3, I think it was, maybe season 4.
Did they really?
Oh yeah, they went to the drive-in and there's Bloodsport, and the fucking one kid's like, "Oh man, this is Jean Claude, man."
I don't remember that. I'll have to check that out. I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's because Van Damme, huge fan of Cobra Kai, reached out to William Zabka on Twitter or something. It was like, I just want you to know I love the show. It's the best martial arts thing in years. A lot of people are like that. A lot of martial artists are huge Cobra Kai fans. Another pitch, a young upstart recruits, again this is also from Sean Gold of Gold's Code. A young upstart recruits an aging Frank Dux to train him for the Kumite, where he must fight Chung Lee's protege. I think that's Chong Lee. Autocorrecting, where you must fight Chong Lee's protege, bring the two enemies back together to face their demons and each other. Sort of a next generation. I'm totally there. I would watch that 100%. They have the son of Chong Lee versus the son of Frank Dux. I'm down for that. That totally works.
I will give you the ultimate pitch that I thought. All right.
Okay.
I believe we should have, a great title. American Bloodsport Kickboxer. All right.
American Bloodsport Kickboxer.
I love that.
All together.
That's great.
Just mix it all together. And literally, it's Van Damme versus Van Damme. All right. So now we get kind of a quasi sequel to Double Impact. All right. This is Frank Dux versus, what was this character in Kickboxer?
Kurt Sloan.
Kurt Sloan. Get those two battling each other. And look, the technology is great now. You could really seriously do it today. You could totally do that, and it would actually work really well. But how cool would that one be? One of them has to win. But what ends up happening is they get I don't know, something happens.
I mean, you're giving a lot of the goods, but you're not giving me enough Joe Armstrong, Michael Dudikoff. How does he fit in?
That's okay. What I'm saying is so they're gonna fight, but then they're double crossed or something, right? Now they got to team up, and you do get Bolo Young, you do get Dudikoff coming in here, you do get Tung Po from Kickboxer 4. You do get all these people in there.
Fake
all right.
Tung Po.
No,
you love the fake Tung Po.
I love fake Tung because he's great. It was great acting. He's just like
the real Tung Po, much better. The original.
Whatever.
I love the idea
of Kickboxer 2.
I love the idea of these three fucking American Ninja Kickboxer or whatever you said, American Bloodsport Kickboxer. I love the idea of taking the greatest of canon films, the three great guys, and putting them in one thing. It's just weird to have two of them be Van Damme. And again, while we're on the pitching stuff, I will say the time travel pitch, the like 1987 version of Bloodsport 2 that I really wanted, would have starred Steve James as like the new like main guy, and that would have been maybe even better than any
Why
fucking
did they?
Bloodsport.
I never understood why there wasn't an official like Warner Brothers canon like Bloodsport 2. I never understood that. I mean, the movie made bank.
Had to do with.
I think by that point they were already in full-on Superman 4 Masters of the Universe
That's
mode.
true. Yeah,
I think they
true.
got drunk off the success of Bloodsport, and they're like, we want this on every movie. Give me Stallone. Give me Toby Hooper. Give me blah, blah, blah. And like I've said this many times, Toby Hooper killed Canon more than maybe anyone else.
The Toby Hooper
like,
movies killed him. Killed it.
Dude,
yeah.
They spent like nearly $100 million on those movies.
I love those movies, but they killed it.
Yeah, they're great. I love Life Force. I love Chainsaw 2.
They're all great. All
and Invaders from Mars. Yeah, they're all awesome. But like they're probably close to $100 million right there. And that's insane for Canon. That's fucking insane. That's like 15 kickboxer movies right there.
It really was actually.
Yes.
But they were at the dance finally, Golan and Globus, but they were the fat ugly guys, and no one wanted to dance with them. So they thought
Over the Top was a huge failure too, and a lot of money.
Huge.
A lot
they paid
of money.
Stallone like $40 million or something crazy to do that movie. Crazy, it completely breaks their model. What made them a success? They should have just stuck with it. And it's a shame because when you look at something like Orion, which is probably like as far away from Canon as you could get at the time, they failed just as quickly as Canon. Their model was not cheap movies. Their model was like hits, Oscar movies, like interesting, revolutionary movies. They had the fucking best picture winner and the highest grossing movie of the year, and they still went bankrupt.
Right.
So
I was thinking of Chaim Golan the other day because I watched this movie that he directed, I think in '98, called Armstrong. And,
oh God!
And there's Joe Armstrong, right? And and American Ninja, and then he directs this movie called Armstrong in '98. And then there's the over the top movie Armstrong, and I was like thinking, like, what's up with Chaim Golan and the Armstrong thing? Also, there's Jackson in Bloodsport. And then there's Jackson and the American Ninja movies, which is kind of interesting.
They love certain names, Armstrong and Jackson. It's
it's just weird.
I feel like Steve James plays a Jackson in something else too. That's canon. I could be wrong, but
he might.
I feel like he plays somebody else, or maybe it's a non-canon movie. Steve James is like one of my favorite dudes that's ever lived. We've all talked about this before and just gushed. One of the fucking just greatest guys ever.
You brought up Cobra Kai. I think I was trying to think of a way to reboot Bloodsport or like, and it's kind of hard because there's so many movies where it's a big tournament where people fight to the death or whatever. But I was thinking if you did it in the style of Cobra Kai, like Amazon Prime just bought the MGM catalog,
right,
and they own most of the Canon films, so they probably own Bloodsport already.
Yeah.
So if they rebooted it as an Amazon Prime series or a limited series, I thought that they could do something cool with it. And like imagine Cobra Kai, but like hard R and like, not like PG-13.
Yeah.
Hard R. You could even bring back the go-to person for me was I can't think of his name right now. Never mind.
The guy that does the monkey style with the gold shorts.
No.
I will say the villain from 2. Now that we're thinking of it, the villain from 2 who's in Dragon the Bruce Lee story. He was great as a villain. Yeah, he was the best.
If you made it a series too, you could bring back the character from the second movie, Alex Cardo. You could bring him and Frank Dick. You could bring him and Frank Dukes back.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
They could come back they could train like Scott Adkins or something to be the new Kumite fighter.
And in all honesty, Daniel Bernhardt probably fits better in the teacher role than Van Damme does, because Van Damme played like the ZN type role in the Kickboxer reboot or whatever, and it just did do it for me.
But I was thinking if you did a show, and since Amazon owns most of the Canon catalog,
that would work.
Just imagine that Bloodsport takes place in the canon universe. So you could even bring other people into it. You could bring Joe Armstrong into it, you know, bring the American Ninja.
That's what I'm
into
talking
it.
about. Yeah.
Like you could all of a sudden bring
American
back
Bloodsport
these people,
kickboxer.
and it could
I'm
be
telling
badass
you,
if they
mix
did
it
right.
all.
That would be great. And yeah, what better thing to do in the final episode of the season than have all hell break loose at a fucking underground tournament, like in a ring of fire and cinematic glory, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you could do.
Yeah, I mean, like Cobra Kai is even setting itself up to end it like a Kumite, you know, like the Sakai Taikai. It's like, well, the word Kumite was taken, you know, like
and it keeps getting more violent and kind of more like the last season was really dark.
But like, yeah, I mean, you could do that with Bloodsport, just get darker and darker and more fucked up, and like again, do some of that like canon using the location. And like the training gets more intense, like you know, you go through like you can push these characters through so much by the time you get to that final episode that like you're gonna cry if they lose, you know. That would be really cool. We haven't pitched a
Van Damme
series
versus
return.
Van Damme.
Soundtrack by Stan Bush.
Oh, for sure. You definitely need Stan Bush.
Oh, by the way, those music montages in the first movie, where like Van Damme's on the bus pontificating about life and shit, and making those weird faces.
In the window.
Yeah.
Like,
tough acting and acting.
Yeah, like he's trying to like
emote.
Use expression to emote and act, but it just looks like he's constipated and like, you know, pained or something. And then there's isn't there another one too? Oh yeah, there's that one where it's like this playful, silly foot chase where he's chasing Forrest Whitaker's chasing around.
Oh, the Mentos commercial.
I hadn't seen it forever. When I watched it, I was just laughing my ass off watching that shit.
But is there one thing we can all agree that Donald Gibb has to be in this?
Oh
yeah.
I
accept
I accept nothing other than that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he should be, you know, we should have the three judges. He should be the center judge, you know, this time. I think that would be a good
nothing is funnier than when Van Damme is doing the splits and it hurt the hell out of me.
Dude, there was too much splits in the first movie. Like I think I counted 7 splits before I ran out of counting splits, like in the first one. I mean, like that's a little too much splits, right? I mean, by the second movie, I was like, wow, there's like no splits. There's just some rad action scenes, you know.
It would be really funny. It would be really funny to feed like all of Van Damme's movies into an AI bot and to have them write one, but like it's like fun. It somehow gets it off. Like
they did. It's called The Shepherd. I'm telling you, just watch The Shepherd.
No, but like just picture it like an AI is doing it, and instead of like getting cut in the stomach, he gets like a paper cut on his finger every time. And instead of like flashing his butt, he flashes like his taint or something. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing the splits, he does a fucking handstand. Like they just get it like right, like so close but wrong. It'd be fucking hysterical. A parody of all things Van Damme. I would be here for it. Ian's like, ugh, ugh. There is another pitch in the chat though. Again from the great Sean Gold of Gold's Code says pitch.
No, just no, stop.
Yeah, just deal with it. Deal with it. Mitchell moves to Hong Kong where he stumbles across the Kumite. Now aided by Jackson, he must use his skills as a blader to fight to survive.
Yeah.
Kumite, I will say, we've seen a lot of underground tournaments. We have not seen a Kumite on wheels yet. And that could be fucking delicious.
Kumite in space is the next step too.
That's
I thought about that.
That should have been. That is the dark Kumite. It was on Mars.
Imagine how many splits you can do with zero gravity.
I'm okay with it, but we gotta somehow get John Carpenter to direct it because when he goes to space, man, it is just a shit show.
That's true.
Oh man, there's some more talk of Frank Dux. Oh, and one more okay, it was just aided, put it in there twice. They wanted to make sure I didn't miss that airborne pitch, so it's in the chat twice. But I mean, I don't know, is there anything else that, you know, we could throw in the stew here? I mean, we've got every canon great thing all in one. I think I would just, you know, I would take that series in a heartbeat. That just sounds amazing.
Well, there's not a really great, I mean, there's not a whole
lot of and what a great twist.
Shows. No.
At the fucking beginning of episode 10, you find out that Frank Dux is full of shit.
Well,
that would be twist. Awesome. That's the fucking plot twist. Right? The twist? They go to the tournament and Alex Cardo's for real, but like Frank Dux is like, oh my god, he made it all up.
And then Stephen Lambert has to come in and kick his ass.
Oh yes. Oh, perfect. Fucking
So,
Lambo, dude. Oh, the fucking coolest dude there is, man. Lambo is
That's
so
good.
goddamn
That's
cool.
good.
Well, shit, I think that just about does it for getting Bloodsport back on track. So thank you everyone in the live chat for tuning in. Thank you so much to the Retro Fiend guys for coming on.
Thank you.
We love you dudes. Before we
Thanks,
wrap it
guys.
up, is there anything you've got coming up on Retro Fiend you want to let the people at home know about?
Well, right now we're just working on a 40th anniversary retrospective of Revenge of the Ninja, because this year is the 40th anniversary. We've interviewed Sam Furstenberg, the director, and the stunt coordinator, Stephen Lambert. So we've got the precision edits done on that, and we're doing post-production. It'll probably be at least 2 episodes. We're not calling it a making of, because it's hard to do a making of without Sho Kosugi. I did ask Sho Kosugi, but he graciously declined. So that's what we're doing right now, and hopefully we'll have it out for you guys soon. So
That is going to be amazing. I'm definitely can't wait for that to drop.
Thanks.
Ian, anything going on article wise? Fandom Spotlight.
Yeah, we just released my article tonight for the B Movie Challenge on the campy camp classic called Oddballs.
Oh,
and
wow.
if you have never heard of Oddballs, there's a reason for that. But if you wanted a movie that had the style of Airplane mixed in with the funniness of Meatballs Part 2 and giving you everything you ever wanted in a VHS cover, and then completely farted the wind at you and gave you none of that, that is Oddballs. So please enjoy the article.
What an endorsement.
Wow.
Okay.
You're hitting him with the hard sell.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah.
If you're in the Upper Darby, Middleton area, come on by.
Speaking of being in the area, if you're in the Atlantic City area this weekend, I will be at New Jersey HorrorCon all weekend, slinging pop culture punk t-shirts and prints. So be sure to come say hi. Also got some cool Q&A panels with Tom McLaughlin, director of Friday 6, Judy Aronson, a Canon legend of her own right.
Yeah.
Some really cool ones. Michael Pare, the great Michael Pare this weekend, Eddie Wilson himself.
Wow.
So be sure to come by if you're in the area, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Atlantic City.
Summer nights.
Gonna be a hell of a time, folks. But also, you Fandom fans might want to come back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. when the VCR damns the man for our Empire Records episode. As always, if you
getting off the couch, Joe.
Yeah, didn't say the whole
couch. The couch, Joe. Taking the cushion, Joe.
As always, if you enjoyed this video, the best way to help is to smash that like button and leave a comment telling us what movie or TV franchise that you want us to cover on a future episode of VCR Redux. And since you're already doing that, you might as well go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow Retro Fiend Radio, Fandom Spotlight, the Hollow 9 Network, and Pop Culture Punk. Till then, back up those Betamax, rewind those Laserdiscs, and we'll see you at the movies.
Hey!